Hi, I'm Paul Nabil, Syrian-American Elder Millennial, and if you're watching this video, it means you know something about, or are at least curious about, Palestine and the modern state we refer to as Israel, and maybe you want to learn more. Maybe you saw something online or in the news that didn't sit right. Maybe you had some preconceived misconceptions that aren't really making sense anymore. But one way or the other, you're curious about it, but you don't know where to start. Start here. My personal approach is to talk about current events often within the context of historical facts, which are largely misrepresented in a shocking amount of literature, but by paying attention to where our sources and citations come from, we can start to learn how to sift through the misinformation. The number one thing that I want to stress, however you came to this post and this playlist and my account, I want to make sure that you understand that this is a safe space for dumb questions and mistakes. While I can't always control the commenters on my account, what I can guarantee you is that I will do everything in my power to make sure that this account does not involve unnecessary canceling, no anti-Semitism/Judeophobia, and no Islamophobia/Arabphobia, to say nothing else of just general racism and hate speech. We are not just here to learn. We are here to unlearn. Many of us learned fairy tales and easy narratives growing up that no longer apply to a complex and nuanced world. The most important thing to remember during the painful process of unlearning is that it does not have to also be a lonely process. Particularly if you're Jewish, you will almost certainly experience painful loss of community and attacks from within that community as you learn more about Israel. But we live in an online world now, and there are countless resources, groups, organizations, and individuals that are here to make sure that you feel supported in some capacity to make up for any loss you may experience for speaking out in support of Palestine. The two most prominent and widespread organizations for that kind of support are If Not Now and Jewish Voice for Peace, commonly referred to as JVP. If you live in a major urban center in America, they will likely have a local chapter who will have an account online that you can reach out to. Know that terms like propaganda and brainwashing are not adversarial, they're inclusive. All of us grew up with fairy tales that sounded nice and helped form us as part of our identity that we eventually had to shed as we grew up and became adults. As a Syrian American, I had the narratives that I loved about my heritage growing up that I had to unlearn. As a regular American, I had to one day realize that making entire groups of children recite the Pledge of Allegiance every single day is a completely unhinged thing to do. As a Texan, and I'm not sure this has the same impact it does on people who didn't grow up in that state, I had to figure out one day that pretty much the entire narrative I'd been given about who was the good guys and who was the villains in the Battle of the Alamo was a complete fabrication. I one day had to figure out why the subdivision I grew up in had the word plantation in the name. All of those are examples of nationalist brainwashing that were almost unilaterally pushed on us by adults that we trusted because we were deemed too young to deal with the true facts. And that means that as adults, we need to take the effort to challenge those concepts. The confusion is the weapon, meant to scare you into silence. So in this series, we will be talking about the last 10 days, 100 days, 100 years, 10,000 years, to hope to add to your arsenal to combat the most common forms of Zionist arguments meant to cover up or wave away the massacre of tens of thousands of civilians and indigenous peoples and the ongoing displacement of millions that began in 1948 and harkens back to the late 1800s with the advent of political Zionism. To paraphrase my historical hero Ibn al-Haytham, the truth seeker must become the enemy of all they read, including of their own mind. So let's unlearn some bullshit and free Palestine.